Cold Brewing Podcasts. All right, this is a podcast I talked about, I don't know, at least over a year ago. It was when Riley was still alive for sure. But Trillbillies Worker Party, they're a couple of leftists living in eastern Kentucky, Appalachian guys, and it's a really fascinating podcast, just like hearing their take on everything and their little corner of the world, especially the ways that, it's like Trump country for sure, but also economically devastated. And oh, what do you know? There's a massive overdose crisis there too. But so their take on politics is fascinating. And one thing they talk about a lot is the E crisis, they call it, which is that we're in an epistemological crisis in this country. And I talked about this specifically in my other video, but it's basically like what people talk about, like there aren't shared realities, and especially post-COVID and post-internet world, like what's real and what's not is harder and harder to tell, and even AI, and it makes things chaotic. Case in point, look at the last couple of years. And we're also at this like kind of interesting like spiritual and political crossroads in this country. A lot of the reason of that is just because like the order and the economic order is experiencing, and has been, I mean basically my whole life, some pretty massive crises, and we're at this polycrisis that I've talked about. And I don't need to talk more about this, but shit's kind of fucked up. And that leads to the epistemological crisis, where things like QAnon can flourish, or things just lots of different misinformation on the internet, and I don't know, internet discourse, and things like parasocial relationships. And that's the world we live in. Like, it's something that we all interface with and we're all experiencing. But I really have been thinking lately about how I think with Riley's mental health and just their the way their brain worked, they were kind of extra vulnerable to the epistemological crisis, and definitely, especially when they are more manic or more experiencing delusions, like conspiratorial corners of the internet, or just anything they would see, they were very trusting, and in these certain mind frames they could kind of just take it in. And it's interesting the way that the internet interacts with like those sorts of brains and people who are vulnerable to things. I don't know if you've ever heard of if you've ever seen a targeted individual video. It's kind of a phenomenon that I don't know how long it's been going on. Sometimes you might see it on TikTok, or sometimes there's like little forums of all these people who say they're targeted individuals. And so you'll see someone just like sitting in a parking lot or something, just talking about how everyone's like watching them and filming them, and it's the government, and each car that's behind them is following them, and they have the proof. And so they're taking this video, and this is their reality, and they're posting on the internet. And it's both cool and also sad. Like, it's someone experiencing crisis online very publicly, who's unaware of that. And what is cool is like usually in the comment section of that, people will be like, oh my gosh, yes, I think it is, you should go to the hospital. And like in some ways people are trying to get them help, but at the end of the day, like that's a comment on an internet video. And in this internet era, like just it's interesting like seeing that happen in this public place. And I wonder, like, there's probably been times where people have been helped by the comments of that, but also it's probably just a thing where if they're in that state, they're doing that. And and I also wonder, like, do they feel this feeling and then they Google it, and then all of a sudden you find the little forum with all the other people that have the same type of like schizophrenia or paranoia, whatever it is, and that like gives evidence of like this is a real thing and it's happening to me, and it can kind of like build on itself. And so, yeah, I think it's stuff like that when I think of the epistemological crisis. And yeah, just I obviously like the internet. I'm a big fan. I'm a pretty online person. I pay a lot of attention to it, but clearly it's changed the way that a lot of society works, and there's going to be consequences of that. And yeah, I don't know, but yeah, it's always hard seeing someone like in crisis like that, especially online. But yeah, we just gotta be there for each other. And what's cool is a lot of people in those comments like basically affirm that this is the reality that person is experiencing, and it doesn't have to be like, no, you're wrong, you're lying, you're crazy. There's a lot of actual care and concern out there, because at the end of the day, that's what we think about each other, and we're just people on our phones, and we want each other to be okay overall. Yeah, I guess that's my Cold Broom podcast, Epistemological Grief Core Edition. Bye.